So it may surprise you, for those of you who know me a little better, to know that when I was younger, I was kind of a little bit of an anxious person, maybe. It was very loud in my head, is what I'm saying, which maybe some of you have experienced that. There's a little voice in your head. Maybe it sounds like your parents that starts a lot of sentences with, you should. You should pick up your room. Why is it such a mess in here? You should really learn CPR. You never know when that's going to come in handy. You should act more like a lady. You should act more like a man. You should act your age. Look at you. You should really lose some weight. You should read all those magazines that are piling up. Why do you even subscribe if you're not going to read them? Why aren't you more like your brother, your sister, your cousin, your neighbor? Blah, 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 blah. Or maybe that voice in your head is even meaner than that. Maybe that voice in your head puts you down, says things like, that outfit makes you look fat. Why do you even bother? Or maybe that voice says, nobody likes you. You don't really have any friends. I bet when you leave the room, people are talking about you, about how glad they are that you're gone. Or maybe that voice in your head says, you're useless. You're worthless. Look at you. Can't even cook a meal by yourself. Does anyone have a jerk voice in their heads like that? Because that voice in your head can be a real jerk, is what I'm saying. And it's exhausting, going around with this jerk voice in your head all the time, saying jerk things, telling you about how you aren't good enough, you'll never be good enough. And maybe if you changed every single thing about yourself, then you'll be good enough. Good enough for who? Good enough for what? I don't know. The voice never really seems to get that far. So it used to be very loud in my head, and it was exhausting. And then one day I heard the Tao. Now the Tao is not a thing per se. It is a process. So the Tao is sometimes translated as the way, but it doesn't mean the way as in like a road, like, this way to the beach, or I think the beach is that way, but more like, that's the way things are around here. That's the way that it's talking about. So it's not a state, it's not a thing, it's not a static, unchanging noun. It's a verb, it's a process. And it's all around us. It's happening all the time. The Tao is in every aspect of the universe. And also maybe outside of the universe. We don't really know. We can't really say. It's kind of hard to talk about what's outside of the universe. It would be really hard for us to observe. So the Tao is also the source of all existence. It's all around us. It can't really be defined. The very first line of the Tao Te Ching says, the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. Huh? What does that mean? But as I've been talking about the Tao as the source of all things, the Tao that is everywhere in the universe, the Tao that is a process. Did any of that sound familiar, to anyone? Maybe sounds like something else you've heard described before, like goddess or God or potential, lots of different names for this concept of something that's bigger than we are, that is part of us and is also outside of us. So when I encountered the Tao, this is what I learned, that I too, and all of you, are part of the Tao, and that therefore there is nothing wrong with me. There is nothing wrong with you. Since the Tao is everywhere at all times, we are part of it, and that means that we are good, or at least neutral. Because the Tao is not bad. The Tao is the Tao. The Tao is the way it is. And we are the Tao. And so we are whatever it is that we are, which is very compatible with Unitarianism, actually. I'm obliged to say that. The ideas of Unitarianism formed centuries ago in reaction to the doctrine of Calvinism. Calvinism held that we are all sinners, that our natures are selfish, and that we require the grace of God to be forgiven. Unitarianism objected to that. Unitarianism held and still holds that we are born innocent and good. So if we are all good, if we are all part of the Tao, then why do we do bad things? Because there are bad things happening in the world and people do bad things, right? So the work of the human, according to Taoism, and now I'm talking about writings by people about Taoism, is to live according to the Tao. That means to live according to the way. Whose way? Your way. Your true way, not the way that other people are telling you how to live. This is where it gets tricky, because the world is full of messages flying every which way telling us how we should be living. We see advertisements every single day telling us that we should be learning a new language, losing weight, you need to buy a big truck, or wear this brand of perfume, or drink this brand of beer. And we get advice from our loved ones, or sometimes just instructions or demands from our loved ones that we should be focusing on our careers, or focusing on having kids, or not having kids, or getting married, or getting divorced. So every day we are faced with decisions about what to prioritize: our families, our health, our work, our time, justice. How are we supposed to know which way is the Tao? Well, there are a lot of Taoist values and virtues, but this is not a college level course. And also I am not qualified to teach a college level course about Taoism. So for the purposes of the next few minutes, I will focus on what are known as the three treasures, which are also the three major virtues of Taoism. So it's called the Sanbao, but confusingly, Sanbao literally just means three treasures, and it turns out there are three treasures of everything. There's the three treasures of Chinese cooking, there's the three treasures of Buddhism, and there's the three treasures of Taoism. So when you talk about the three treasures, you really have to be specific about which treasures you're talking about. Anyway, so the first is Ci, which is usually translated as compassion. Is there a slide up there? Okay. So in classical Chinese, Ci is actually the term that is used for mother. So it carries with it these ideas of nurture, tenderness, compassion, kindness, gentleness. So this Ci is a virtue that's all about how we behave toward other people, how we're supposed to treat other people. And it's with tenderness, mercy, kindness, compassion, gentleness. The second treasure is Jian, which is sometimes translated as frugality, and sometimes translated as moderation, and sometimes translated as simplicity. I personally don't really care for the frugality translation because it kind of makes it sound like you're supposed to be like some kind of tight-fisted Scrooge, you know, pinching every penny, being really frugal. When this isn't actually anything to do with money. It's more about how you're supposed to live and what you prioritize in your life. So it's about not taking too much, living as simply as you can, practicing moderation in all things. So not too much, but also not too little. Like you know, you got to have enough to live. But it's about not giving into excess. It's about not hoarding things, not hoarding all this stuff that you don't need. So this is a virtue that's all about how we engage with our environment and our resources. Now, the third is actually a full phrase. There's a lot of words up there, I know. 不敢为天下先. So that roughly translates to something like dare not be the first before heaven. Sometimes it gets translated into humility because they want all the words to match and just be one word. But it's not a bad translation actually, because this phrase is really about hanging back, restraining yourself, not trying to be the center of attention, not always being the first to speak. So this virtue is about how we think of ourselves and how we show up in the world. So that's the three treasures. We have 慈, compassion, 俭, moderation or simplicity, and 不敢为天下先, dare not be the first before heaven, or humility. If you learned nothing else about Taoism other than what I've talked about in the last, 7 minutes or so, these would not be bad virtues to live by, right? It's okay to nod or say amen or something. I welcome participation. Lets me know I'm on the right track. And if you've learned something about other world religions already, you might be thinking to yourself, actually, like, this sounds really familiar already. Like, doesn't Buddhism talk about that? Or Christianity talks about that? Or Hinduism talks about that? And you would be right. Many religions all over the world instruct us in how to live. And for the most part, I think they tend to boil down to, here are some ways to not be a jerk. Don't be a jerk, be kind to others, don't take up too much space, but also not too little. You should be kind to yourself as well. And don't go thinking you're better than everyone else. It is not that hard. Don't overthink it. And that is actually one of the foundational teachings of Taoism right here. I am not kidding, is that one of the virtues of Taoism is not overthinking it. You see this guy chilling under a tree? He's chilling under a tree. His name is Zhuangzi. He's a philosopher. He's chilling under a tree, not overthinking it. He is just chilling out. Now, this is the thing that I think is tricky for Unitarian Universalists, because we love to think. We love to analyze every situation. We love to be intellectual. If you think I'm kidding, look at how many words are in the 7 principles. Those words that we all live by, there's so many of them. But the more we think and analyze and get all caught up in our heads, the farther away we get from the Tao, the spirit of the universe, the natural order of things. Sometimes I look at a cat or a dog, napping in the sun, and I'm like, that seems nice. It's so uncomplicated. I wish I could be as comfortable as a cat is 100% of the time. No matter where a cat is, they are comfortable. Anyway, so in Taoism, the goal is to get to the very essence of yourself, who you are when the world is not telling you that there's only one right way to be. Who you are beyond all of the fear and anxiety and trauma. Who you are beyond ego and selfishness. Who you are when you're really and truly yourself. That part of you is also the Tao. That part of you is also the sacred mystery. That's what you're trying to get in touch with when you're not overthinking it, when you're just chilling underneath the tree. And when you get there, when you encounter the Tao, inhabit it, trust it. Trust that your most divine self knows what to do next, that you already know how to be good. You are good, and you already know how to be good. It is a tall order. Maybe it's not as simple as it seems, but don't overthink it, because it may not be that simple, and it's also not that complicated. So there was unfortunately a page missing from the Time for All Ages earlier. So unfortunately, you missed the most important part of the story, which is that he rescues the panda from the woods, right? She wakes up and she's like, "Where's my child?" So he runs out into the woods and finds her child and brings the baby panda. The baby panda's fine, in case you were worried. Brings the baby panda back, and then everyone's happy, and little Nicolaj is like, "Well, I feel good about what I did today, but I still don't know how to be a good person." And Leo the turtle is like, "But you already do, actually." And he talks about how Turns out the most important person is the person that you're with. The most important time is now. Nikolaj already knew what to do to be a good person. He went out into that storm and rescued the panda. And then when she said, my baby's out there, he went right back out and rescued the baby. He didn't think about it very hard, right? He didn't stand there and go like, well, let me make a pros and cons list of going out and saving the panda. He knew what was the right thing to do. He didn't need to think about it. So the Tao is mysterious and complicated and unknowable, and there is a sense of rightness when we encounter it, when we know that we are living the right way. And that's the sense of peace that little Nikolaj felt at the end of a long day where he'd acted righteously. So we know the Tao when we encounter it. We know the Tao when we are living the Tao. And when we can stop worrying about how we'll know when we get there. So now, for a bit of practice, we are going to practice not worrying and embracing the Tao with our next hymn, 1059, which you may or may not know. Don't worry if you don't know it. Don't worry if you sing off key. Just relax, go with the flow. All right, and you can remain seated for this one.
Okay, don't overthink this, all right? But we're going to sing this through twice, and then we are going to overthink it. We're going to draw a line right through the middle of Bob out there. You can go on either side of this line you want to. And then we'll do this as a round at the end. So this side over here will start, and then Megan will lead this side of the room with a round. So you each get to do your own thing, and you'll know you did the right thing when you end up in the right place, okay? May your life be as a song, resounding with the dawn, to sing with the night, and softly serenade the stars ever dancing circles in the light. May your life be as a song, resounding with the dawn, to sing with the night, and dancing serenade the stars ever dancing circles in the night. May your life be as a song, resounding with the dawn, to sing away the night, and really serenade the circles in the night.
Everyone having a good time so far? Yes. Okay. All right, next up, so for the past few weeks and for the next couple of weeks, we're going to have what I'm calling testimonials. So these are stories from people, UCFers. Some of them have been longtime members, some of them have been new members, just talking about what difference Unitarian Universalism and the Unitarian Coastal Fellowship has made in their lives and why they're as involved in the church as they are. And today's testimonial is coming from wearer of many hats, many hats, Tom Wentworth. He's here, he's up here already.